Dear students, I am Dr. Mukeet and I welcome you all to the first online lecture of Electronic Devices and Circuits. All of you must be aware of the present situation of COVID-19, due to which all the universities have to go online for delivering lectures as per HEC policies. This might not be the ideal situation, but we need to go through it as a team by mutual cooperation. I will be recording 3 online lectures per week from here on, and the YouTube link of those lectures will be provided to you. You are requested to listen those lectures very carefully and forward your questions through your CR to me. I will be answering those questions in the 3rd lecture of every week. You will be given assignments at the end of each chapter, and those assignments will be evaluated. You will be requested to complete those assignments within the given deadline. We might not be able to conduct any more quizzes for the remaining part of this semester, so the weightage of remaining quizzes will be given to these assignments. Therefore, all of you must take them very seriously. Furthermore, all of the related course contents, including textbooks, assignments, and updated course outline, will be uploaded on your CMS servers. Now, before we formally start our first online lecture, I would like to share the revised CLO assessment criteria and mechanism of overall grading policy with you. As you can see that CLO1 and CLO2 are not affected. However, the weightage of quizzes for CLO3 and CLO4 have now been reduced to 0, as we will not be able to take any more quizzes. The weightage of assignments and final exams for both these CLOs have now been increased, and the updated numbers are here in colors. As far as the overall grading policy is concerned, it has also been revised. Now the quizzes will be given only 10% weightage, while the assignments will be given 20% weightage. The weightage of midterm and final exam will stay the same at 30% and 40% respectively. Quite some time has passed since our last lecture before the midterm exam. Therefore, I would like to provide a brief summary of each chapter covered so far. Starting with the summary of chapter number 1, in which we discussed about the basics of a semiconductor diode. The first thing that we discussed was semiconductor materials. Although there are numerous semiconductor materials that can be generally divided into organic polymers and inorganic semiconductors, we discussed only 3 inorganic semiconductors, including germanium, silicon, and gallium arsenide. We also discussed about the energy levels of insulators, semiconductors, and conductors. As you can see in this diagram, that the energy gap between the valence band and conduction band of an insulator is quite large. That does not allow the charge carriers to take part in conduction. This energy gap is quite small in the semiconductors as compared to insulators. So by providing a small amount of energy in the form of heat, light, or electric voltage, the charge carriers can jump to conduction band from the valence band. We classified the semiconductors into p-type and n-type materials based on the type of donor atoms. As you can see in this diagram, that electrons are the majority carriers in n-type materials due to doping of group 5 elements, while holes are the majority carriers in p-type materials due to doping of group 3 elements. The above 3 bullet points provide the base to discuss about the semiconductor diode. The construction of a diode is such that it can be formed by joining a p-type material with an n-type material. In the diagram, all important features of a diode are presented, including the depletion region at the junction of both materials. Another important point that we discussed in this chapter was the behavior of an ideal diode and the behavior of a practical diode. This diagram shows the behavior of an ideal and a practical diode by drawing its IV characteristic graph. As you can see that ideally a diode must start conduction at 0 volt, but there is always a knee voltage. Here you can see this is what we call as a knee voltage. This is required to overcome the depletion region formed at the junction of two semiconductor materials of a diode. Moreover, ideally there should be no current in the reverse bias region, as you can see with this blue line, but practically there is always some leakage current in the reverse bias region due to the flow of minority carriers. We also discussed about the three types of resistance levels in the calculations of a diode, including static resistance, dynamic resistance, and average resistance. The equations and graphical determination methods of these three resistance levels are presented in this table. Although the piecewise linear model is the closest to a practical diode, we discussed two different other mechanisms as well and equivalent models as well. The three different diode equivalent circuits are presented to you in this particular table. As you can see, the model and characteristics of piecewise linear model, simplified model, and ideal device are presented here. And these are the special conditions that must be taken into consideration while assuming these two models. We also discussed two types of capacitance related directly to the diode, including transition capacitance and diffusion capacitance. Although both of these capacitance are present in forward and reverse bias region of a diode, but diffusion capacitance is dominant in forward bias region, while the transition capacitance is dominant in reverse bias region. The CV graph of a diode is shown in this figure. We briefly discussed about the special types of two different diodes, including a Zener diode and a light emitting diode. This is the electronic symbol of a Zener diode, and this is the electronic symbol of a light emitting diode. The details of these two types of Zener diodes and light emitting diodes were discussed in chapter number 2. Now we shall discuss the summary points of chapter number 2, whose topic was diode applications. The first thing learned by us in chapter number 2 was the load line analysis. As you can see in the figure that a load line is a straight line drawn on the IV curve of a diode. Signification of drawing this line is that it gives us the Q point or operating point of a diode where it intersects with the IV curve. As you can see in this diagram, that this black line is intersecting the IV curve that is given in blue color at this point. Now this is where we should operate our transistor or diode. After that, we discussed about different configurations of a diode in which it can be connected in circuit, such as series configuration as shown in this figure. Diodes can also be connected in a parallel configuration and series parallel configuration as shown in this figure. One of the most basic application of a diode was discussed, and that was half-wave rectification. This application can be achieved by passing a sinusoidal wave through a single diode. The waveform of a half-wave rectified signal is shown in this figure, in which the negative cycle of a sinusoidal wave has been clipped or rectified. Another application of semiconductor diode was the full wave rectification of a sinusoidal waveform, whose waveform is shown in this figure. The details of converting a sinusoidal signal into a full wave rectified signal can be found in your textbook, and you must read them. We discussed in detail the application of clipping an AC signal. An example of a clipped signal is shown in the figure, in which a small portion of the positive cycle of a sinusoidal wave is clipped by using a diode with a power supply and a resistor. Various clipping circuits are available in your textbook for practice. The other related example of diode application discussed in our class was of clampers. Diodes can also be used to shift the signal above or below the time axis as shown in this figure. All the steps of solving a clamper circuit have already been discussed in detail. However, remember one thing, that the peak-to-peak value of a clamped signal does not change. It can be seen in this figure that the peak-to-peak value of original and clamped signal is 30 volt each. We also discussed the techniques to solve circuits with a DC and AC power sources as shown in this figure. As you can see here that this is the AC source and this is the DC power source connected in series with the diode. Finally, we discussed the use of Zener diodes as a voltage regulator in electronic circuits. All the related concepts were discussed in detail, and an example of an electronic circuit with a Zener diode is shown in this figure. Now we should discuss the summary points of chapter number 3, in which we started to discuss the concepts of a bipolar junction transistor. The construction of a BJT was discussed in detail after giving you the classification of transistors in general. We discussed that a transistor has two semiconductor junctions instead of a single junction of a simple diode. Unlike a diode, BJTs are three-terminal devices, and these terminals are called emitter, collector, and base. From the construction point of view, emitter has the largest size, while base terminal is the smallest, as shown in this figure. The operation of a BJT was discussed in detail, that how the size of depletion region changes by applying voltage sources. The flow of electrons and holes as majority and minority carriers was also discussed. This diagram contains all the important parts of majority carriers and minority carriers as far as the flow of charges is concerned from emitter to collector. You must understand that emitter in this case is the input terminal and collector is the output terminal. After covering the basic concepts of transistor, various configurations in which a BJT can be used were discussed. The first configuration was common base, that is usually used to isolate output voltage signal from feeding back to input to increase bandwidth. It also provides low input impedance along with a current gain of unity as shown in this figure. Secondly, the configuration of common emitter was discussed as shown in this figure. It is the best choice for amplifying the voltage, especially at the low frequencies. Common emitter configuration is usually used in low noise amplifiers. Thirdly, we discussed the configuration of common collector as shown in figure. It is also known as emitter follower configuration. It is used as a voltage buffer and also to match impedance because of high input impedance. Lastly, we discussed the limits of operation for a BJT as shown in the output IV characteristic graph. The operating point should lie within these limits to achieve high quality signals with little or no distortion. With this, we can conclude the 3 chapters that were already discussed in detail in our regular class sessions. Now, as you would remember that we already started chapter number 4, but just to give you a brief overview of this chapter as well, I would like to start with chapter number 4, that it was also related to BJTs. But this time you need to understand that in this chapter we were discussing about the DC biasing of BJTs. In this chapter you will learn about different configurations of a BJT by applying DC biasing. In this chapter we will only deal with those electronic circuits that are powered by DC sources and not by the AC sources. Some of the important BJT configurations include fixed bias configuration, emitter bias configuration, voltage divider configuration, collector feedback configuration, emitter follower configuration, common base configuration, and miscellaneous configurations. Now let us solve a few examples related to the DC biasing of all the mentioned BJT configurations. The first configuration under our discussion is fixed bias configuration. The fixed bias circuit is the simplest transistor DC bias configuration as shown in this figure. Before I tell you that how should you solve such circuits, let me assure you that if you follow the method correctly and do some practice problems, then solving these circuits will become a child's play for you. For the DC analysis, the circuit can be isolated from the indicated AC levels. By isolating the circuit, I mean that you can easily replace all the capacitors, that is C1 and C2 in this case, with open circuits. Secondly, you can also separate the DC supply for analysis purposes only to divide the circuit into two parts of the input and output, which will make the calculation easy for you. After incorporating both the above suggested changes, your fixed bias configuration circuit will look like the one as shown in this figure. As you can see that both the DC supplies have been separated from each other, and also both capacitors have been replaced with their open circuits. After redrawing the circuit, now is the time to apply KVL on the input loop and the output loop. That will give us two equations from which we can easily find the values of two variables. Let us apply KVL on the input loop first. The input loop has been drawn separately for your understanding as shown in this diagram. Here you can see that we have three voltages including a DC supply of VCC, voltage drop across the base resistor, and base emitter voltage VBE. By applying KVL on this loop, we simply get this equation. VCC minus IBRB minus VBE is equal to 0. As you can see that VBE, RB and VCC are the values that are already given in most of the cases. So the only variable we are left with is IB. There were a few standard equations of a BJT including IC is approximately equal to IE and IC is equal to beta IB. In this case, after finding the value of IB from the input loop, we can easily find the value of IC by using this relation of IC is equal to beta IB, as the value of beta is usually given to us. Once we have the value of IC, IE will automatically be found as IC is approximately equal to IE. Isn't it fun that by just applying KVL once, we have found the values of three different variables, including IB, IC, and IE. Now let us apply KVL on the output loop of fixed bias configuration. The output loop has also been separately drawn for the ease of solving this circuit as shown in this diagram. As you can see here, we have again three voltages including DC supply voltage VCC, voltage drop across collector resistor RC, and the collector emitter voltage VCE. By applying KVL on this loop, we simply get this equation. VCE plus ICRC minus VCC is equal to 0, which gives us VCE is equal to VCC minus ICRC. Usually values of VCC and RC are already given, while the value of IC would also be found in the previous step, so we can easily find the value of VCE. Once we have found the value of VCE by using the general formula of VAB is equal to VA minus VB, we can say that VCE is equal to VC minus VE. As the emitter terminal is directly connected to the ground, therefore VE is equal to 0 volts and thus VCE is equal to VC. By using the same general formula of VAB is equal to VA minus VB, we can also say that VBE is equal to VB minus VE. Again, as VE is equal to 0, therefore VBE can also be written as equal to VB. These are the set of equations for a fixed bias configuration circuit that can be used to solve any electronic circuit involving this particular configuration. Isn't it simple? Now take a deep breath before we solve an example. This example says that determine the following for the fixed bias configuration of figure. Part A, you need to find IB and IC. Part B, you need to find VCE. Part C, you need to find VB and VC. Part D, you need to find VBC. The only difference in this circuit and the one given on the previous slide is that in this circuit you are given with the values of these variables including RC, RB, VCC and beta. The solution of this example is extremely easy. All we need to do is to follow the steps that we have just discussed on the previous slide. As a first step, redraw the DC bias circuit of the given network by replacing both capacitors, that is C1 and C2, with open circuit, followed by separating the DC power supply of VCC for input and output loops as shown in figure. Here you can see that we have separated both power supplies and we have also replaced capacitors with their open circuit equivalents. The second step is to separate the input loop of this circuit as shown in this figure and apply KVL on it. By applying KVL, we will get the following answers for IBQ and ICQ, and thus part A is solved. These equations for IBQ and ICQ have already been found in the previous slide by applying KVL on the input loop of this configuration. We are able to find these two values because values of RB, VCC and VBE are already given. We just have to put these values in the KVL equation of input loop. The third step is to separate the output loop of this circuit as shown in figure and apply KVL on it. By applying KVL, we will get the value of VCE from this equation, which solves part B for this example. Here you can see that if you can apply the KVL formula on this outer loop, you will get this particular equation for VCE. You just need to replace the values of VCC, IC and RC to get the value of VCE at the operating point Q, and that comes out to be 6.83 volts. Part C and part D are rather even easier, as all the three quantities can be easily found by using the general formula of VAB, which is equal to VA minus VB. As we know that VBE is equal to VB minus VE and that VE is equal to 0 volts because emitter is always connected to ground in fixed bias configuration. Therefore, VB is equal to VBE, that is VB is equal to 0.7 volts. Similarly, VCE is equal to VC minus VE, but as VE is equal to 0 volts, therefore VC is equal to VCE, and that is equal to 6.83 volts as calculated in the previous part. To solve part D of this example, we need to use the same general formula again. VBC is equal to VB minus VC. As we know that values of VB and VC from part C, therefore VBC must be equal to minus 6.13 volts. I hope that all of you would have understood this example. There is one other important variable that need to be found, and that is IC saturation or saturation current. In order to find the IC saturation or saturation current, we should know the equation of output loop for any configuration for whom you want to find this quantity. That is, in this case, the output loop equation is VCE is equal to VCC minus ICRC. Output loop equation for different configurations can be different. We need to do the load line analysis to find IC saturation. As you can see in this figure, that a black colored load line is drawn on the output characteristic graph of the BJT. The method of drawing this load line for each configuration is very simple. As we know that a load line is a straight line and we only need 2 points to draw a straight line. All we need to do is to put VCE is equal to 0 volts in the output equation, which is given here, which will give us IC is equal to VCC over RC. This is the point where the load line must cross the y-axis because VCE is equal to 0 volt on the entire y-axis. Similarly, put IC is equal to 0 milliamperes in the output equation, which will give us VCE is equal to VCC. This is the point where the load line cuts the x-axis. Hence, by finding these 2 points, we can easily draw the load line by connecting them with each other. The point at which the load line cuts the y-axis, like this point, for a fixed bias configuration, it gives us the value of saturation current. So in this case, IC saturation is equal to VCC over RC. So whenever you are asked to find the saturation current of a fixed bias configuration circuit, you need to use the formula of IC is equal to VCC over RC. To get further insights about the load line analysis, let us observe the effect of increasing base current IB on the operating point. It can be seen in this graph that as we increase the value of IB, our operating point keep on moving towards the saturation region. The blue lines are showing the values of magnitudes of IB. This arrow shows that the value of IB is increasing in this direction, and as the arrow is showing the increase in the value of IB, the Q point, that is our operating point, is also moving towards the saturation region, that is near the y-axis. The second graph shows the effect of collector resistor RC on the saturation current. It can be seen that RC and IC saturation are inversely proportional. Here you can see that R3 has the maximum value and the current due to R3 has the minimum value. So we can safely say that the relation between collector current, collector resistor and the saturation current is inversely proportional to each other. Third graph is drawn to show the effect increasing the value of DC bias, that is VCC. It can be seen that VCC and saturation current, IC saturation, are directly proportional to each other. As you can see that as we are increasing the value of VCC from VCC3 to VCC1, by keeping the value of RC constant, the value of saturation current is increasing. We can see that the load line cuts the y-axis at IC is equal to 10 milliamperes and IC is equal to VCC over RC for fixed bias configuration. Let us solve another example related to load line analysis. Given the load line of figure and the defined Q point, determine the required values of VCC, RC and RB for a fixed bias configuration. In order to solve this example, you should first figure out that what information is already given to you. As you can see that the load line is cutting the x-axis at VCE is equal to 20 volts. From previous slides, we know that VCC is equal to VCE. Therefore, we can say that VCC is equal to 20 volts at IC is equal to 0 milliamperes. We can see that the load line cuts the y-axis at IC is equal to 10 milliamperes, and as IC is equal to VCC over RC for a fixed bias configuration circuit, as discussed 2 slides earlier, therefore RC is equal to 2 kilo ohms. We are just replacing these variables with their respective values. Finally, as we know that by applying the KVL on the input loop of a fixed bias configuration circuit, we will get the equation of IB is equal to VCC minus VBE over RB. In this equation, we have the values of 3 variables IB, VCC and VBE, but we don't have the value of RB, that is the requirement of this question. So by replacing the values of these 3 variables, we can easily find the value of RB to be equal to 772 kilo ohms. With this example, we come to the end of our first online lecture. This lecture was a refresher and a wake-up call for you to gear up and get back to work immediately. You should revise all the 3 chapters in this week along with solving different exercise problems from chapter number 4. In the next lecture, we will learn to solve the electronic circuits of remaining BJT configurations. Till then, take care of yourself and your family and stay home.